Tom Selleck, the tall, silent American television titan, stood still for 5 decades of change. An unrisen man via noise or show, but through exceptional honesty that became legend. Few of his era have shown such resilience. That man turned rejection into fuel, sacrifice into legacy, and crushing weight responsibility became the foundation of millions' confidence. He gave America felt safe in Magnum Pi. He gave us blue bloods. America rediscovered the quiet force of unshakable honor. His projected $45 million fortune is astonishing .million, a monument to tenacity, perseverance, and discipline. Moreover, 275 episodes of 14-season network powerhouse Blue Bloods, syndicated royalties year after year, and a secluded valley property worth around a $5 to $6 million refuge and monument. Over 60 acres manually formed. Trees like vuffs, ditches cut like carving destiny into soil. In California, his properties soar like worn chapters of a life built on sweat rather than fame. While his working trucks and old Jeeps exhibit dawn ride scars, the midnight returns, and a purpose unswayed by renown. But this tale is unrelated to wealth. The price is etched into every inch. Because scars cover his ranch, every roll, payment, and beamed at Empire Records nights, he had stabbing pain. To film scenes, he met daybreak exhausted, and his back threatened to collapse, bind him as iron. Behind millions' favorite tranquil hero struggled with missed opportunities. Years of silence ended a marriage that's snatched by duty and the slow insurrection of a body crushed by decades' own stunts and carrying productions. When those people who love him don't notice assets in his work. Seeing the father who abandoned fame to comfort a sick child. The husband who rebuilt from ashes love. Performance artist who refused to sacrifice a scene even when every breath pained. If his silent strength has supported you, pay homage below. For even one like is a murmured thanks to the man that whose silent strength supported us when life was too much. Life may weigh someone before they're known. It's terrible. A peaceful burden that settles in and shapes an unplanned fate. For Tom Selleck, that weight began in Detroit, Michigan, on January 29, 1945, still recovering from war, where comfort and discipline were limited the sole stable currency. He was raised in a home held together by force that unspoken order to endure. His silent father, Robert, could cut sharper than rage, fiercely real estate. Not seeking wealth, but daily struggle to maintain 6 lives. Martha, his calm mother, unwavering, stretched every dime like someone who knew one incorrect move may crash everything that structure. Luxuries were absent. Principles ruled. Work hard. Speak truth. Stand firm. Later, Tom said, "My folks taught me money to keep stable when life wasn't done." In 1952, the family crammed everything into one. He drove west to Sherman Oaks, outrunning chance. Restriction. The move left a silent mark, every recognizable sound for a brilliant, fast, too bright world demanding. Hollywood shone miles away, but his life was small and tight, disciplined. The Selleck home judged affection by expectations, not softness. Silence often replaced comfort. Tom learned to read stillness and bear it. Responsibilities without yielding. To be calm under strain that rarely subsided, presence viewers would later mistake for confidence, was being fashioned in a life where Tom needed stability, not brilliance. School provided structure that was respectful, disciplined, and modest, but no advantage excused him. He found movement on the basketball court. Sharp rubber against polished wood gave him a brief break from his weight. Every race freed him. He felt free with every leap. Practices were struggled, failed often, yet effort became his language. Teachers admired him. His humility and grit impressed coaches, but Tom never claimed greatness. Work was all he knew. At home, expectations, though gripped like a vice, there were subtle gestures of care. A repaired uniform before morning, a warm supper after tough workout. A rare nod from him. Father felt like a medal fastened to his chest. 1962 vehicle catastrophe shattered the ground. Not just his reality, fate didn't whisper at 17 in one heartbeat. He was transported average afternoon. And then a tremendous burst devoured him. Screaming metal and bursting glass. Vehicle lurching, spinning world, the abrupt cold. Silence under him. All etched his memory. Metallic taste, engine hiss, Startled quiet, he felt contact stronger than pain. Yet the deepest wound reality that life may tilt in a moment wasn't physical. Breathing. He lay between terror and insight. Listening to he felt a shift inside, not just his heartbeat. When he returned to court weeks later, the difference was clear. Every step was careful and measured, as if he had learnt. His eyes carried a silent storm. Aroused, accident became the invisible line between his past and present. Forced to become. It strengthened his resolve, sobered his judgment, and made appreciation his backbone. By 1962, it earned him a scholarship to USC because he endured, not because he shined. Assumed he would follow his father into real estate, unaware that every hardship, silence, every sudden fragility lesson had deepened his understanding. Resilience and strength are calm, steady things. Fire sparked when life breaks you. Yet crash survivors didn't. Some battles don't hit all at once, so prepare him. Dismantle you slowly. In Tom Selleck's early 20s, the world did not welcome him. It tested and stripped him. While graduating from USC in 1965, a acting coach invited him into a classroom he never meant to be in. A little theatrical area with flaking paint and a spotlight. Yet on stage, heffled a familiar discipline and a calm power he didn't understand shift. He took little roles everywhere he could. Drinks, unnamed minor roles, and brief walk-ons. He sometimes wasn't. He later admitted, "I wasn't trying to be discovered. Tried to hang on to something true, not glamorous." Then he survived a dream he wasn't sure he deserved. 1967 was a call he refused to ignore at 22, although other young actors were running for their careers. Tom received his draft notice without hesitation, but he stepped ahead without protesting. The peaceful sense that duty was part of who he was led him to answer the call, without looking for loopholes. He served 6 years in the California Army National Guard with the 160th Infantry Regiment, gave his country stability, raised to carry. Duty was an extension of Tom's existence. His calm integrity allowed him to accept this accolade that directed his every move. Hollywood worships momentum, and 6 years away erased it. Returning in 1973, his fantasy felt older than him. Casting directors examined him like a face they should have remembered, but didn't. He closed a few doors that had opened before he served at old. Competing with younger faces who hadn't lost a year, let alone 6, he entered audition rooms where quiet was indifferent, not harsh, apathy wounded deeper than rejection. 6 one-line guest parts and gas-sucking commercials. Several pilots that sounded promising but were canceled. Tom heard the same quiet call every time America saw them. Thanked his agency. Hung up and carefully folded the script. He trained at Beverly Hills, putting another small dream to rest. Playhouse was his only place to feel valued. Long nights, tight money, and forgetfulness weighed on them. Clenching your fist against him. You wonder whether you're practicing. He once said. Without anger, Tom refused to give up, even though he was tired and had learned how chilly a locked door might feel to disappear. He attended auditions, classes, and every opportunity, no matter how tiny or embarrassing. He survived the tough years, the silent years when most would have given up. Slowly, instead of flair or recognition, casting directors remembered him for that remarkable stability. Struck the notice of producers on the Rockford Files cast him as private investigator Lance White, which finally made it. It wasn't an explosion or overnight, but audiences lean in. The first honest light after a long gloomed in the invisible grind. He would become a star. Years without appreciation and no promise. Tom Selleck became America's man would one day trust. Sometimes a man's hardships all at once like a fuse, quiet and waiting for a spark. For Tom Selleck, that spark exploded in 1980 at 35. After years in, he entered Magnum PI's sunny world from Hollywood's shadows, and everything changed. Ignited. Mustache, Ferrari, Hawaiian clothes didn't make him famous. Ratings showed America's long-awaited stability. Soared. Programs drew millions, and they brought over $200 million to CBS. First, real money followed his name. $8 million in 8 seasons. The foundation of a fortune based on determination and not luck. Lifetime of endurance, ultimately burning brightly. The crown arrived with injuries. Magnum wasn't fired on a nice lot. It was forged beneath the harsh Hawaiian sun 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week for 8 brutal years. Sweat stained his clothing before cameras rolled. His antics hurt his back. He refused to hand off. Holidays faded into schedules that ignored loneliness. Some evenings, Heffel asleep in his trailer, boots on. Best job ever. He later admitted it took more out of him than he expected, saw charm and sunlight, but not ice packs. Midnight rewrites. Or Magnum feared one bad occurrence could topple his empire, built his legend, but it cost him nearly a decade of serenity. Even after that victory, fate struck cruelly in 1981 that Tom was awarded Indiana Jones, a 10-figure role. After auditioning for an immortal film, he had promised Magnum millions in movie history. Contractually, ethically, he would not violate it morally. CBS and Tom refused to release him. Tom betrayed his promise as Harrison Ford was lauded. He suffered alone, knowing he'd sacrificed a lifetime role for a job that finally believed in him. The next morning, he was back on set under the same sweltering sky. Magnum terminated in 1988 to less enthusiasm than usual. Hollywood recoiled, roles wavered, rumors grew. Was he? Tom wondered if Magnum was more than he seemed, that used it as fuel. The next decade showed that men rise secondhand, tried to break him repeatedly. In 1987, Three Men and a Baby became America's highest-grossing film, surpassing $240 million. This miracle was lauded, but the public didn't see his nights of rest awake staring at the ceiling. Worried Hollywood had silently moved on. If the shadow of Magnum would destroy all future dreams. Film saved his career and rescued him from dread to becoming invisible. Audience laughs lifted him, murmuring, "You're still here." Quigley's subsequent films Down Under, Mr. Baseball, and others won hard. Battlegrounds. Months away, scripts falling apart mid-shoot, studios wondering if a 40-year-old could carry a film. Exhaustion clung to him like a second spine, yet he continued because he knew too well what it meant. Momentum alone is never enough, and in the mid-2000s, Jesse Stone performed a harsh role. 9 films on loneliness, bereavement, addiction, and quiet pain. The audience saw brilliance. Tom felt it. Exposed. He gave that persona his rawest self. On some days, he left set trembling in his trailer, as if Jesse's wounds had merged with his. He was lauded and successful, but each performance cost him more. Sleep forced him to open heart rooms he thought were sealed. He opened them permanently because honesty required it. In 2010, despite most actors his age leaving, he entered Blue Bloods at 65. It should have slowed down. He stepped into a role that carried an entire person. Franchise on his shoulders. 5 months became 5 years. More than 275 episodes earned him $2,025 million. Long nights, dawn call times, and bones were the actual penalty. Deep exhaustion of supporting a cast and millions of weekly viewers. He relied on him certain mornings when his strength shook. Every stride hurt knees. Some scenes were heavy than Reagan's badge. Because he never quit, he kept coming back. People assumed comfort from his $45 million inheritance, yet they're looking at his entire journey. Sweat on, Hawaiian mud, missed roles, early door slams, and aging in an insecure way industry that forgets its heroes, and the years spent recovering the world whispered his end. Every bruise, sacrifice, loneliness, wrestling doubt was preparing him for the chapter no one could see. One that would require more heart, truth, and unshakable courage than any limelight. Tom Selleck appeared unstoppable at Magnum's peak. A darker truth was silently shattering him beneath the camera's glare. Soft, blessing like love stories exist, that start so hopeful, yet finish cruelly. Tom Selleck met Jacqueline Ray in the late 1960s while still alive. Balance auditions, rent, and goals, struggling. For every inch, the first was Jacqueline, a smiling woman who made him feel seen without performing. Their 1971 stability helped him in ways he didn't realize. Wedding was tiny, with close friends and simple vows. Yet warmth. That room felt bigger than fame would ultimately bring him. Modest home, hand-patched walls, carefully placed vintage furniture. Sharing optimism shaped their life. Evening dinners became whispered future aspirations. Morning sunshine slanted across a table with money and excitement. When Tom hugged her young son Kevin for the first time, something old and wounded inside him softened as Kevin placed his small arms around Tom's neck. His family took shape in ways he never imagined. Jacqueline later said, "He made uncertainty safe in those quiet, simple years, the kind of love that makes the world more forgiving." But even hopeful beginnings can be. Magnum P.I. introduced in 1980. Tested by grow-by-grain distance, Tom's career boomed, but his marriage began to unravel. Unfastened. Hawaii looked idyllic on television, but Tom found it a longing island, days and longer silences. 12, 14-hour scorching shoot sun. 6-day weeks, self-performed stunts, eating nights cold lunches alone in unhomey rooms while Jason Struggletto maintained California life. Holidays with one chair unfilled, birthdays wasted without him. Kevin calling for dad. Love, even intense love, can shorten calls and delay letters. Weary from wanting. I felt like I was losing him slowly. Jacqueline stated, softly, that Tom carried the I wasn't there enough. Their 1982 divorce was quiet. Blame, just sadness, tiredness, and two people realizing they couldn't see their world unraveled, so they divided what little they had. They had a small home and some savings. But the major breach came in. Tom watched Kevin's doorway rise and fall in silence. He breathed, knowing this was their last night together beneath one roof. He softly closed the door, but it echoed. Some wounds don't show on the skin. They reorganized. Theus, if satiated with the grief previously imparted, life struck again. Terrified. In August 1983, only a year after the divorce, Tom took Kevin, his true son, to practice driving in a multi-story parking garage. It should have been a quiet moment that a stuck gear shift separated a father from his beloved son. A sharp jolt, a terrible thrust, and chaos ensued. A 20-foot plunge. Gravity sent the automobile over the third story, tearing metal down, glass bursting whitely, concrete speeding up meet them. Tom's guttural cry was a man watching helplessly as his child died. He ran down the stairs, fists scraping walls, pulse pounding so fiercely drowned out every sorrow and missed moment. Every worry of not being enough collided as he reached the wreckage. Shaken, battered, and terrified, Kevin endured every awful possibility. Tom was bleeding and scraped, but the worst harm was the realizing he was almost lost his most precious link, everything fame had given him. He whispered to Kevin, he was shivering with broken thank yous. Nothing else mattered, he felt certain except for the miracle in his arms. That day established a path. His fault line would last forever. But what could have broken him? Instead, that almost loss quietly shaped him from then on. It transformed him into a father who loved fiercely even from afar, distance. Into a man who defended his people with deeper instinct. Who counted time by hearts, not achievements. Became someone who knew with chilling clarity that life is not measured by applause gathers or accumulates fortune, but struggles to safeguard love when world wants to pull it away. That accident softened him, strengthened and deepened him, since some wounds don't kill, that shape you into a more compassionate, stable person with greater gratitude. For Tom Selleck, that day was the moment he realized the best blessings are almost lost. Men have seasons when their hearts feel like burned fields, quiet and hollow, waiting for anything mild enough to grow there again. In summer 1983, Tom Selleck Magnum PI brought quiet ruin to London that made him famous worldwide. But success exacerbated silence waiting when he turned the key at home. He survived the collapse of his first marriage, leaving Kevin's chamber alone, and the terrible realizing how easy life can take what you love. London was meant to be a place where ratings and deadlines didn't matter. One evening, a colleague actor suggested Tom meet kittens. Expecting distraction, he consented, nothing more. But when the lights dimmed and the stage lit up, his not spectacle or choreography, but one performer who's Jilly Mack, brilliant, she moved automatically with a joy that wasn't forced, noisy yet alive. Tom waited in the lobby after the curtain fell, then he wanted, feeling a pull he hadn't felt in years. Friends chuckled later that the actor who fell out of helicopters forgot how to introduce himself. He did, and Jill laughed unrestrained, thrilled, and unbothered. Fame. He recognized something he couldn't name, that he visited cats several times in the weeks that followed. By the third, the towering American in the audience caught the cast's attention, but Tom wanted silence, something Jill radiated. Their chats were soft, careful. The way two people communicate after losing everything they never dreamed they would. Walks in London's moist evening air become refuges. Tom listened as Jilly brewed tea and teased him out of stiffness that cut into him. He showed her his fearful, real self. Rarely showed. He listened. She remembered when they married in 1987 in a secret ceremony. Even close friends learned it was protection, not secrecy. Tom had seen a marriage crumble under fame. This time, he wanted a foundation that distant from photographers, flashbulbs, and expectations. They chose a peaceful property in hay and rainy mornings in Ventura County, far from Hollywood. Earth. Horses snorted outside the windows, and Tom, for the first time in his adulthood, he refused roles out of devotion, not arrogance. Years later, I knew what I didn't want to lose again, he added sadly. Buy It felt like a second-chance house when their daughter Hannah was born in 1988. Friends saw Tom's change immediately. He left set early. Attended school activities with the same attention he used to film stunts. With Hannah on his breast, he fed horses. Learned to braid Jill Steyer days, she got hair. They were flawed. Not a couple. Their exhaustion prompted angry comments at night. When filming distance threatened old wounds. When Jilly worried whether fame would steal him again. There were Tom watched the California horizon alone on the porch in the mornings. Frightened of history repeating. But every dispute, every two stubborn people who refused to let go terminated the misstep, had suffered too much to risk losing each other. Slowly, brick by brick, frail brick, they erected a mansion that could withstand renowned storms to unshakable remoteness or fear. Their ranch became more than a getaway. Learn where Tom's wealth came from: clever investment choices, hard effort, and a marriage based on harsh lessons. However, even robust homes confront shadows. Tom learned that love requires more as Hannah grew. Provision. It takes guts, presence, and a heart willing to face fear with no retreat. A difficulty arose years later during a peaceful season of their home that fame and money could not change. Something that tested them as people, not performers. Parents. Something lured them to sterile hospital corridors and nights whispered prayers at night. Tom never disclosed details. Publicly, merely that the incident reshaped him, but friends stated same thing. After that, he was softer, more thoughtful, and more observant how delicate a heartbeat is. This marriage, kid, second chapter taught him that true strength isn't what others see. It's the quiet determination to fight for loved ones even when life tries to rob you. Tom found something higher than fame in that truth. Surpassed riches and legacy. He found love that survived every storm and stands. However, life rarely announces its arrival. Plans to hurt a father, allowing the world to feel secure and warm before it gets cold without notice. Tom, 43, held Hannah in the circle in 1988 out of his arms under the gentle gold delivery room lights, offering a fatherly promise that I'll guard you. Remembering her little breath against his chest became his silent prayer in 1991 when his 3-year-old girl had a normal fever that turned abnormal by evening. That became much scarier. Her breath was faint and thin. Little body shivering against the blankets, fingers gripping at nothing, as if seeking breath she could not find. Tom lifted her and felt her terrifying lightness, as if she were falling away inside his arms. The drive to the hospital was obscured by weeping. Daddy's right here. Even though his voice shook with unheard terror, a pediatric ward devoured them. The fluorescent light, sterile silence, and beeping monitors recorded every frail second as doctors whispered words that sounded surreal, like waterborne whispers. Tom sat still, fingers stretched around Hannah's hand in despair and prayer. Jill silently leaning into him as they waited through nights, when hope soared and fell till in that suspended zone between. Tom swore to never speak out of faith and fear. He would not lose again. Moment in her life. Not one. So in 1992, he left Hollywood at 47, in his peak, without applause, without a goodbye or camera facing the entryway. He closed quietly. Roles worth millions sat on his desk, and used scripts could have changed his career. But he delicately placed them on the table one evening beneath in the faint light of his study, peered at them tremblingly, and rejected fame for a daughter's breath. Years later, he said, I could film another movie, but never return. Time I may lose with her. The Ventura Ranch became theirs. Sanctuary. He fed horses in the mornings with Hannah on his hip, evenings with a peace that eased hospital lights and sleepless nights. And slowly, Hannah slowly recovered, her strength returning like daybreak. After a storm. By 1995, she guided her first pony. Tom bought her. He laughed across the acres he cleared with his hand. Through the mid-1990s, Tom saw her soar. Trot first, then canter soar. She rode her first horse at 4. At 10, she jumped cleared at such boldness that surprised even experienced trainers. Tom became this parent who stood everywhere. Rail, boots dusty, cap low, gaze fixed on her like a heartbeat. His heart, never cheering or garnering attention, just watching the most important element of his world move with the strength he asked for. Never abandon her. Fate returned in 2018, when Tom was 73. Nearly personal force. The famous Spruce Meadows tournament. Hannah's horse aired. Stirrup wouldn't release. And instantly, as she dropped, the world slowed horribly. Dirt rising like smoke, skidding hooves, and thousands silent thud. Something. Tom opened the antique interior. Fear from 1991 returning pushed through the boundaries with violent clarity. Loud heartbeats smothered every sound, racing toward the arena like a runner, fate itself. When he reached her, her eyes hurt more than ever. Life had ever given him. Though kind, doctor's words shattered in two pieces, it nevertheless cut into the man who had once guaranteed her safety forever. Recovering tested the soul. Surgeries, crutches, therapy that helped her overcome crying. Every time Hannah stumbled, Tom was there, not as the world-admired legend, but as father, who sat by her in waiting rooms, held her shaking hand at operations, and discreetly watched her in the therapy room corner battle with the same tenacity he used to escape Hollywood at sharpest shadows. "She's tougher than I ever was," Dot whispered. Every word was laced with pride and terror. Hannah rose yet again slowly, painfully, wonderfully, returning to the arena with courage, someone who didn't let fear change her tale. People talk often about Tom Selleck's long career as if honors or responsibilities defined legacy. Though quieter and deeper, the truth is chiseled into moments the public never saw. The nights he watched a child's frail breath. His mornings were steady. Her suffering. He repeated his quiet vows whenever she stood up. I tried again. His finest successes were unfilmed. They stayed hospitalized hallways, arena rails, in hidden choices where he prioritized family. Ambition and love over fame. Because characters do not define men. Represents, but by the hearts he saves, the silent wars he fights, the folks he'll never lose. However, life strikes hard. Solely for youth. It frequently saves its hardest tests for peaceful years. The years when a man thinks he's earned his tranquility but finds otherwise. Time is harsher than any storm he survived. After the dread of seeing his daughter fight for months after Hannah's 2018 fall, Tom worked with a weight no one could see to regain the light. The weight of a father who almost lost his child, now woven with the subtle betrayal of aging bones. Long days on set at 73 of Blue Bloods pressed harder than any childhood stunt. Frank Reagan wore a mantle similar second skin, a quiet battlefield of stiff joints and careful steps, slower breathes before each scene. He woke early, script pages shaking slightly in his palms, not from nerves, but from time, maintained his 14-year legacy by running the show with the same conviction. Dedication, and millions relied on his calmness. When the studio heard budget cuts in 2023, but Tom didn't object or beg. He took a wage cut so the cast and crew, family he formed on that set, might die with dignity. But after Blue Blood stopped in 2024, silence cut strangely. The lights dimmed behind him as he left the set for the last time, leaving just an empty stage. One chair designated Frank Reagan. First time in 14 years, his morning began without a call sheet, scripts on the counter, or movement to steady him. Purpose. He sensed the peaceful truth time brings in that quietness. Every dude. Life might be difficult not in battles, but in the day when the world no longer needs us to battle. Long before scripts shaped his days, Tom constructed something more sacred in Hidden Valley's hills. A 65-acre ranch he bought in 1988, Dean Martin's, now his family's. Complete tale. In the California sun, he hand-dug trenches and planted reared horses with Jill and Hannah and thousands of trees. A world defined by earth and sky's peaceful rhythms, not celebrity. Birthdays, barnlight lit radiance. Every important memory was in the orchards, where laughter floated. Hannah got her first ride. Jill's smile brightened the roughest days. And Tom found the only environment that only required honesty. Ranches require devotion, not nostalgia. Years passed, and expenditures rose. Repairs, feed, irrigation caretakers. Even as the body slowed, needs persisted. Falter. Income that had silently kept this going disappeared with blue bloodhoods. That refuge alive disappeared, leaving a heavy truth to every line he spoke. Time, cost, and age rarely spare anyone. The most disciplined man. He never called it dread. He acknowledged softly, keeping up is harder now. A confession etched from humility and fear of losing the only place his family's life was still in the soil. Years ago, in 2015, that land had experienced a storm he never predicted. During a local water district accused him of illegally extracting water during California's severe drought, dragging him from his private shelter to public scrutiny. For he who based his life on integrity, the charge cut deep. The gate was full of reporters. Overhead helicopters circled. Strangers vilified distantly without knowing the man who fixed fences by flashlight at night. Hay hauling in the morning across dawn-wet fields. Tom could have fought loudly. Instead, he quiet dignity, handled the situation, and resumed ranch work because the land needed him more than headlines. That kind of wounds persist. They settle in men's private places, turning up years later when the world changes again. By 2024, his joints were slowly deteriorating due to age. Halfway through patching every fence, hands paused. Some mornings, he felt pain before leaving the porch. Some nights, he stopped at midst of pasture. Watching the hills fall, he gasped, "T.O. twilight," the once comforting silence pressing harder against him. Ribs. Despite the increasing shadows, Tom tended his ranch, his unwavering commitment to every role and loved one. Irrigated his decades-old trees and combed his ponies. Family through joys and hardships and traversed familiar paths with the determined calm of a stubborn man. No aging, no situation, not age. Since some battles aren't fought alone, against time, amid loud studio lights, uncertainty, amid concerns about losing the places and people that shaped Itman's innermost soul. Tom lives quietly in this chapter. Selleck remains strong, steady, and unbroken, displaying courage to is in his resilience, not his cinematic roles, and his ability to face the world each day when everyone stops gazing at him. At 80, Tom Selleck stands. Few men attain the late golden light of life. One obtained slowly, gradually via decades of discipline, calm hands, and favorable choices, honesty over praise. His reported $45 million net worth is not the highest product of luck or overnight celebrity, but 50 years off nonstop effort. 14 blue blood seasons, 8 as anchor-defining years of Magnum, PI, long-running syndicated royalties, decades of filmmaking, lifelong investing, and the humility to live modestly while the world anticipated greatness. His wealth doesn't show luxurious, but durable. His life's work, the 65, is the centerpiece of his estate, acre Hidden Valley Ranch. Purchased in 1988 and personally renovated into sanctuary. Over the decades, its value has skyrocketed. Not just celebrity ownership, but because Tom refurbished and extended it in his only way, slowly, deliberately, with sweat rather than spotlight. Hand-hewn beams warm the Spanish-style home, tile from centuries ago. Verandas open to fields where the horizon seems endless. Stables are for serious equestrian work. The orchard thrive with hole-by-hole planted trees. The pool is stone-framed. Assisted hall. The ranch is an extra, a living autobiography cut into California's soil. Spread over it are tools and machines that talk to humans. He won't replace the aging tractor, he still utilizes his weathered fencing set on nice days and his automobiles. Trusts. An old pickup, a Cadillac he keeps as a remembrance, and few mud-covered Jeeps that have seen more sunrises than some professions. Hollywood. The man who owns it all. The body of Tom now carries authentic 80-year truth. Years that communicate without disease through the gentle, relentless reminders on his knees, back, and morning stiffness. Some days the first few steps are heavy and the joints complain that after a cold night. He must stop at the porch rail before continuing. His knees were battered by decades of stunts, long shots, hard landings, horseback riding, saddling, and ranch chores now hurt more, sometimes enough to slow you down. Always enough to remind him of time's gravity. Yet he persists walking. He still works the property, crossing familiar paths. Mindful steps. He lifts saddles slowly and deliberately. Memory, not strength, guides me now. On mild days, he rides, letting the horse work, following tracks he once raced with youth. Now he moves through them with different courage. Courage to persist how up and live in a patient body that he ages without drama or staged battles with time that elegant, steady dignity of a man who knows his boundaries. Yet he refuses to let those years define his life. His children are his lifeblood. From his first Kevin marriage is quiet and creative. He's resilient like his father. Hannah, a skilled equestrian. She trains with her father's discipline and takes on more ranch work over time. My bond with him has grown over time. No longer his children, they're guardians, defenders of his legacy and family's land. While Tom keeps his will private, his friends know the ranch, soil, stables, and memories should remain in their hands that someone will respect it. Tom's generosity, like him, is unobtrusive but steady. Over time, he has donated hundreds of thousands to equestrian, veteran, and law enforcement support rescues and kids' charity. Credit and fame have never been his goals. He gives because it fits his life, responsibilities, and principles, kindness and thankfulness. How does his day look now? Dawn finds him on the porch with a sweater, coffee in hand, watching fog roll in dot orchards. He walks the property line slowly but confidently. Brushed the horses gentler after decades of care. He rests more, reads more, spends peaceful afternoons with Jill familiar sounds, creaky floors, moving branches, faraway hooves. He occasionally reads old scripts out of curiosity, not longing to man browsing old photos. On some evenings, the light has fallen and the valley is calm. He feels thanks and wonder, knowing he lived fully, worked honestly, and loved fiercely. His fame no longer defines life. Peace shapes it. Peace gained by storms, sacrifices, and a lifetime of prioritizing what glittered. As we conclude this chapter on an incredible man, please leave your thoughts below. Dear visitors, fortune, fame, and privilege did not come to Tom Selleck. He carved everything that owned after decades of discipline, effort, and resistance to quit. From years of rejection and forgotten auditions to protracted shoots, 14 seasons beneath the Hawaiian sun recovered his stability after mid-career uncertainty. All his ranch's acres and dollars his accounts. Whatever security he has was won slowly but truthful way. Have you grown from his journey? Looks like a builder, he lived his life without shortcuts, scandal, or shortcuts. Surrender affected your story. Tom's fortitude, humility, or please share your work ethic inspiration below. Your words continue the legacy of a guy who showed prosperity is not made by noisy, yet persistent. Stability is work, not chance, and silent. A steady existence can be the richest. Be blessed wherever you are with serenity, health, happiness, and success. May you have peaceful days, quiet nights, and a full house. Warmth. We at Golden American Stars appreciate your walk. Journey with us. May your life be meaningful, hopeful, and all season bright. And may you create your future with it. Patience, courage, and quiet strength got Tom Selleck there.